Sir, why are you being arrested? Sir, why are you being arrested?
Breach of the peace, supposedly.
Why aren't they arresting the person that cut up Nick Alexander?
They're on their side.
They're on their side.
Of course.
What did you do exactly to breach the peace?
I wouldn't move.
Would you make some space?
You look around, these people are not fascists, these people are not Nazis, you see a diversity here, these people are not white supremacists. I'm saying you see a genuinely concerned people.
This is much like what we've seen throughout history. Empires fall at the site of sexual perversion. It's happened so many times.
Where is my brother whose face is pouring blood right now? Last I saw him, you guys threw him in a paddy wig.
People on the other side, they're the one who are throwing name at us, being violent. You know, they call what they're doing anti-hate. It's 1984. Anti-hate is hate.
So they're basically cutting out the people for their own agenda, and their agenda is, I'm sorry to say it, but it's grooming and indoctrination and brainwashing of our children.
Okay, I'm going to say this is the fight of your life for your children and your grandchildren. You need to come out and protest.
Shame! 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 Shame!
David Menzies for Rebel News here in Toronto, and folks, I'm at a demonstration staged by Billboard Chris Elston and Josh Alexander. It's all about bringing back education into the schools over indoctrination, especially when it comes to things like the radical transgender agenda. Now, a couple of things that stand out. As you can see to my right, there is a large law enforcement presence. And the reason for that is that the people here, as part of the demonstration, they're not wearing trouble on their shirt. They're not prone to violence. I wish I could say the same about the counter demonstration. We have the Spirit Unicorn community organized once again by public sector unions to do a counter demonstration and hopefully create intimidation, fear tactics, and even violence. I did see one scuffle already break out. So we're going to go into the crowd. We're going to interview Chris and Josh, and we're going to attempt to interview the counter protest, but we know what we usually get there. It's raised middle fingers and F-bombs, because for some reason they just seem to have a hard time articulating what they're counter protesting about, but we shall try anyways. Well, folks, before I get to the crux of the matter, if you can, please go to our website, stopclassroomgrooming.com. That's stopclassroomgrooming.com. Put your name to the petition, and also, if you can help us out financially, we have some security guards with us today. That's because the counter demonstrators, they're prone to violence, and essentially we need their protection. So if you can help us recover our costs, we would gladly appreciate that. That is stopclassroomgrooming.com. What is the purpose of this demonstration today, Chris?
The purpose of everything I do is simply to create awareness about what I consider to be the greatest child abuse scandal in modern medicine history, which is the business of telling children that they were born wrong, that they need to be something they're not, and then giving them puberty-blocking drugs, cross-sex hormones, and even surgeries in a fruitless effort to change their sex, based on the lie that they'll never find true happiness unless they try to modify their body.
Well, I'm with the man of the hour himself, Josh Alexander. Josh, first of all, before we get into the reasons why you're here for this demonstration today, can you bring us up to date what your education status is? Are you still student non grata at your school board?
Yeah, so I just got an email not long ago, like about a week ago, that I've been kicked out of school for another year.
A year?
A year.
And the crime was?
The crime was the usual, quoting Mark 10:6. They also didn't like that I said male breastfeeding was pedophilia. The other issue, more recently, they started scrolling through my Twitter on a meeting with me, and they took issue with Jason Aldean's Try That in a Small Town. They took issue, I was in Atlanta, Georgia, hanging out with the Warrior Poet Society, and we did some firearms training, and I posted a video of that. They also took issue with that.
So they're essentially spying on you. This is 1984 on steroids, it seems.
Exactly. And then I think one of my favorites is they pulled me into a meeting and they asked me, if mask mandates come back, will you comply? And I told them, I said, as a born-again Christian, I believe in the truth, I cannot lie. And if you're referring to another global lie like we just saw the last couple of years, I said, no, I will not comply with that. And they've said that I have a non-compliant attitude and that I'm a bully. I've been kicked out for another year.
Pastor Hildebrand, what brings you out to this demonstration today?
Well, just like you said, it is the indoctrination of our children. We know that some time back it was the churches, it was the pastors, but when you touch the children, it touches a nerve. And what we see here today is a failure of our politicians who have not done what they should have done. That's why you get to this point. The parents recognize that something needs to be done. Yes, I realize we have a housing crisis, but right now we have a crisis that is worse than the housing crisis, and that is the education crisis. The indoctrination that is happening by pedophiles, and that is what alarms us as parents.
We saw Jagmeet Singh march with the counter demonstrators. We saw Justin Trudeau double down on Twitter with the support of the rainbow community. And yet it looks like the Conservatives, and I mean all Conservative MPs, including the leader, Mr. Poilievre, there was a gag order. They didn't weigh in one way or another. What do you make of that?
Well, you know, I said 5 years ago that the Conservative Party of Canada is intellectually and morally corrupt. That's why we created the People's Party. And every day you have a proof of that. Pierre Poilievre is not doing politics and not fighting for real conservative values. He's only conservative in name. But I must ask the question, where is Pierre is nowhere to be seen. But also why he's not here? Because Pierre is not a leader. He is following the public opinion. And, you know, a leader must lead, must have a vision for this country. We know that the public opinion has been manipulated by the radical left, by the legacy media, by the liberals, but Poilievre won't try to change that. He will follow the crowd, and that's why he was not with us in Ottawa this week, and he's not with us today. He's afraid of that.
What gives?
I haven't seen anything from anyone, and in fact, even our own mayor at the city of Pickering while the protest was going on, he wasn't even there. He wasn't even in attendance.
Wow. So I guess by the silence, I don't know what it means. Does it mean they support the counter-protests, or does it mean that this is a third-rail topic, i.e. radical transgenderism, and we dare not touch it?
No, most of them, I would have to say, they support the counter-protest. I received an email from our CIO actually the day before the protest, and they were making themselves clear that they are against anyone. They think that we're full of hate. They think all parents are full of hate right now. They think that they're not for diversity, they're not for inclusivity, and it's really, really sad to see the rhetoric that she was spreading. So I had to send an email back saying, with all due respect, you have misinformation about what's going on here. The parents want to protect their children, and they want to protect their parental rights. And you know what? They have every reason to, because following the path that we're on, my own personal opinion is, what happened with the residential schools? Who started that? It was the government and it was the schools. And right now, with chants going on in the background like this right now, where they're saying that our children are not our children, that they belong to the schools, that is a very, very frightening stance for them to be taken.
Our party has been very clear on the idea that we need to get indoctrination out of the school systems. We also are in favor of school choice, so giving the money to parents so that they can decide what to do with their kids. And of course, this is one of the main reasons why parents may not want to have their kid in a public school. Indoctrination when it comes to gender ideology, critical race theory. We need to break the hegemony of the public school system and get some competition in there and parental choice.
What brings you out to this event today?
Well, David, thanks for welcoming me, and thank you for doing the news that Rebel News does and puts out there and is always there covering the stuff that mainstream media won't do. But I'm here because I believe in education, not indoctrination of our children. I remember a time when we went to school and we actually learned about the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. We learned math, we learned science, and more importantly, we learned history. We didn't learn about sex at the age of 5. In fact, I don't even remember knowing what sex was until I think sexual education classes were introduced when I was 12 or 13. And even then, it was about puberty and changes that were going to happen to our body, not about felching.
What brings me out is that I don't want to have children be indoctrinated in schools with taxpayer money. And I believe that we're getting to a point where a lot of people didn't know what was happening in schools, and now people are starting to know what is happening in schools. And I think most people, if they knew what was happening in schools, wouldn't agree with it.
The fascists are organizing in the streets. I'm a researcher at Carleton, and my focus is fascism in Canada, and the signs that I've seen that were rising, that this is far more than just like a far-right transphobic protest. They are fundamentally racist. They're fundamentally anti-union. They are fundamentally queer and transphobic, and it's just a matter of time before they come to us.
What brings me out? Well, I say mutilation is castration, and these people, the union betrayed their members. They betrayed the children. They want them to be mutilated, and they castrate them.
And Liz, I'm reading your sign. This union member supports parents' rights. Keep SOGI out of school. My goodness, a union member supporting parents' rights? And why did unions call for Antifa to come to a peaceful protest? Why indeed? But, you know, saying these kind of statements, writing them even, Liz, I would imagine you are rank and file non grata with the unions right now.
I'm just one of the many foot soldiers in the union. They probably don't even know I exist.
People will come up to me from the trans cult over here, the Rainbow Mafia, and say, why are you dressed like a fool? Why are you dressed like an idiot? Why are you dressed like a pervert? But if I went and said that to a man dressed as a woman, I'm going to be convicted of hate crimes by Trudeau's Liberals.
Yeah, and really, talk about the pot calling the kettle black. That's outrageous. But because at first I thought you might be a trans cat. That seems to be a trend right now. It's not changing your gender, but changing your species. But this is just a gag right now.
Liberal logic to expose their hypocrisy.
And Sasha, tell me, what is it that brought you out here today?
I don't like the brainwashing and mutilation of children. And they're saying, oh, trans rights are human rights. Yes, all mentally ill people have human rights as well. But they do not have the right to brainwash children into cutting off their own genitals.
You know, Sasha,
that's not a trans right.
And I see you have a sign, Jack, trans against gender ideology and queer theory. First of all, what does that mean exactly?
Well, I wasn't really aware of this until last December, but there's quite a lot of examples that I've seen now, photographs and videos showing a lot of instruction about sexual orientation and gender identity, so-called, in schools. And yes, as a trans person myself, I don't think it needs to be taught in schools, and I don't think kids need to be exposed. I have a mental disorder, and kids don't need to learn about it.
Well, folks, I don't think the double standard could be more apparent than what we've seen in the last hour. We had one individual on the demonstration side. Yeah, he was a little lippy to the police, but he was gang tackled, handcuffed, hog-tied, put in a paddy wagon, and taken away to jail. And on the meanwhile, if you can see beyond me, Nick Alexander, that's the brother of Josh Alexander, looks like someone threw him a haymaker. I don't know if a weapon was involved or not, but he is bleeding from the eye. And not only is there no arrest, I don't see anyone administering first aid. I mean, it's ridiculous. I did reach out to the police and ask them, has there been an arrest made? I mean, that's the telltale evidence of a physical assault, is it not? And my answer was, no comment. Yes, nothing to see here, folks. Move along, move along. Unless you're on the other side, then law enforcement will use all its might. I think that is downright shameful.
That's Wild Bill.
Oh, Wild Bill.
Now the police are arresting a veteran for speaking out against violence towards children.
So they are arresting the injured guy? Is that what's going on here?
They're arresting the veteran!
They're arresting the
They're arresting the veteran! They're arresting a veteran!
Oh, come on. This is unbelievable. Hey, sir, why are you being arrested? Sir, why are you being arrested?
Breach of the peace, supposedly.
Why aren't they arresting the person that cut up Nick Alexander?
They're on their side.
They're on their side. What did you do exactly to breach the peace?
I wouldn't move.
We'll just make some space.
Sir, you were a veteran, right? You are a veteran. Just doing my job.
Peace.
Now you're going after a veteran. What a top guy, man.
Why haven't you arrested the person that bloodied Nick Alexander, officer?
What happened?
No.
Why are you arresting this
What happened to Nicholas? Huh? What happened to Nicholas? Sorry about that. They beat him up and they did nothing. They did nothing. Not a thing.
Half a step, please. Get your hands off me. I'm trying to do an interview. Sir, why have they arrested the person who assaulted Nick?
Because they're on the same side.
Is that true, officer? Are you on the same side?
They watched him get beat up. They watched him.
This is outrageous.
He was
Half a step, sir.
You guys are terrorists. I'm doing my job. It's a sidewalk. Give me your arms.
We're going to give you the space. Just give the officers some space. Don't push in.
You know, he's as old as your water, man.
Officer, can you answer why the person who bloodied up Nick Alexander has not been arrested?
You're so tough, man. Oh my God, I can't imagine how tough you are. That's all you got. That's all you got. You go after a kid, 17 years old kid and a veteran. Stop that. You go after a 17 years old kid, you bleed on a 17 years old kid and a veteran. What a tough guy, man. Oh my God, I'm so scared.
Shame on you. There is no justice.
Shame! 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 Shame!
Well, folks, that was just absolutely astonishing. The police just arrested a veteran. I believe he might be 80 years old. I was there the entire time. I did not see that veteran get physical. I didn't even see him raise his voice. But evidently he was arrested for breach of peace. What peace? Meanwhile, he was standing right next to Josh Alexander's brother, Nick, whose eye is cut open and bleeding profusely. No first aid treatment administered, and even more disturbingly, no arrest by any of the members of the Love Trumps Hate Spirit Unicorn community. This is one of the most disgraceful acts of law enforcement, or I should say non-law enforcement, I have ever witnessed.
I would like to open an investigation.
Are you going to do it?
Where is my brother whose face is pouring blood right now? Last I saw him, you guys threw him in a paddy wig. Calm down, brother. Where's my brother? Do your job. Where's my brother?
We're concerned for his safety, as we were all along.
Where is my brother?
Is he arrested for getting punched? I don't get it. What happened?
Where is my brother?
Can you answer the question? Answer the question.
If you're walking away from
answer the question.
Where is my brother?
They're a responsibility of the Toronto Police Department.
Are you supposed to arrest him?
Can you find out,
We need to
please?
find out right now.
Did you arrest the victim for his own safety?
Mr. Bernier, I thought justice is supposed to be blind, but it seems that it's wearing x-ray glasses these days. I have witnessed a couple of people being arrested on the demonstration side for basically being victims. One, a veteran just standing there, and one, Josh Alexander's brother, cut open above his eye, allegedly by an umbrella by the Spirit Unicorn community, and he's the one that gets arrested, not the person wielding the umbrella. What do you make of this?
You know, as you may know, shame on the police. I was arrested also for nothing. I was arrested in a park 2 years ago when I was fighting for freedom. I didn't anything wrong. I was just there to speak about my values. And, we don't have any freedom of speech in this country. When you're a political leader and just before an electoral election, you are in a park and having a meeting and you're handcuffed, arrested for a non-crime, and I was in jail for 12 hours. I'm not surprised that the police is doing that right now. Shame on them. But the most important, it's a peaceful protest today. We are there for the real values, and I hope, and I'll put all my hope with Josh and his brothers. Josh is a good fighter, a peaceful father, kids, and did nothing wrong. But people on the other side, they're the one who are throwing name at us, being violent. They call what they're doing NT8. It's 1984. NT8 is 8. And more people know that right now. So let's focus on the future and on our ideas. And I believe that we'll be able to solve that today.
These aren't the most intelligent people in the world, but essentially this is part of the queer theory umbrella, which is trying to destroy our society. They're teaching children that there's such a thing as being born in the wrong body because we have this innate gender identity which somehow trumps our biological sex. But this is a cult. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is a simple cult that has infiltrated all of society. And of course there's money in it as well. There's money in it for the surgeons, there's billions of dollars in it for the pharmaceutical companies. And if you go back in time, you've got a few autogynephilic billionaires. These are men who have a fetish. They basically get aroused by the idea of being a woman. You have some billionaires who funded this back in the day. They were initially funding these gender clinics. But this goes back really to the late 50s with a pedophile named John Money who worked at Johns Hopkins University, who first coined the term gender identity. And he experimented on children, had them doing sexual things to each other, and falsified his research. And this concept of a gender identity had been floating around academia for decades in some obscure corner of these universities. And so as long as it was there, that was one thing. But now it's emerged into the mainstream. When gay rights were won, the focus of all these TQ plus organizations, and I don't call them LGBTQ organizations, they're just TQ, the focus changed from gay rights to trans rights because they achieved their objectives, but they're not just going to shut the doors. They got to keep donations flowing. They got to keep everyone employed. So the objectives changed to trans rights. And they've been very successful in conflating these two as the same thing. But they've got nothing to do with each other.
I don't know, reclaiming sanity in the public education system.
Right. So many things you can do. You can show up to an event like this. You can vote for a political party that supports stuff like this. You can vote for a school trustee that supports stuff like this. And in our last municipal elections that we had just a little while ago, there was a ton of candidates running all over Ontario and Canada who were in favor of getting indoctrination out of the school system. Also, show up at your local school board and protest. Speak, ask questions. This is what more and more people are doing all around North America, and it's starting to work, frankly.
It seems to be a double standard. Earlier I was speaking with Billboard Chris Elston, and he's being physically assaulted on camera in front of cops, and it's nothing to see here. Disgraceful. But, Josh, what do you make of the counter demonstration? We saw this on Wednesday with the Million March for Children demonstration, in which public sector unions and school boards and the teachers unions all rattled the war drums to have a counter demonstration, and the rhetoric they say about people like you and all these other people attending, you're fascists, you're Nazis. I would wager that if the police weren't here in such a great number, they'd be prone to violence.
Fight or fright. And so let's give them some fright on September 20th. What do you make
of the blowback you're getting?
Well, I mean, I take it all as a compliment. It means we're doing something right, and that's what we're told in the Bible. The world will hate you, right? And I'm not ashamed of it. I embrace it. I want to give them the truth, and I want to be able to talk to the students. And as we speak, students are coming out from lunch break right now, so we're going to have an opportunity to talk to them and give them Bibles and give them the truth. And I mean, they can do all they want. I'm happy to speak to any of them. I have no hate in my heart for them, but I'm not going to compromise my message.
You look around, these people are not fascists, these people are not Nazis. You see a diversity here, these people are not white supremacists. I'm saying you see a genuinely concerned people. And when you remove, I'm saying even away from God and the Bible, but when you remove the foundation of society, the house falls. We cannot have this. I have no bitterness against these people whatsoever. Yes, we are like two camps here, kind of like David and Goliath, you know?
And that's why they don't teach history in school anymore. And when you don't understand history and you don't know history, it tends to repeat itself. And Marxism has been here forever and a day. The Third Reich never left. It's still here. And not only is it still here, they've managed to put themselves in all the positions of power in order to bring the Marxist agenda to the forefront. And like I said, they put women back into work, which is fantastic. I love my job. I love working.
Wait a minute. What's a woman?
According to them, it's anything but what it actually is, right? But at the end of the day, it's a war on the nuclear family. And when you are able to divide the nuclear family, and now parents have to work 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet, and inflation goes through the roof, and the pricing of housing goes through the roof, and the price of groceries go through the roof, parents now have to overwork just to try and make ends meet. And when you're doing that, you forget the focus of the children, you forget to focus on family because you're too tired. And then the Marxist agenda comes in. Their whole agenda starts with tearing down society, tearing down religion, tearing down the education system, tearing apart social life. And once they can win all of that and do that, which they've successfully done over the last 40 years, because again, we went to sleep.
Well, what I say is if you support this counter group, you are a supporter of the pedophile group. End of story. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Either you protect the children or you don't. You pick a side. There's only 2 sides.
There's no hate. There's just a point in the zeitgeist when I think the silent majority of Canadians have said, and we heard it at the District School Board of Niagara March on Wednesday, we heard it from the Muslim parents, 20% that showed up in a march of 800 people. They've said, you know, we've let live, but enough's enough. This has gone too far.
The most important question, I would say, is what will it take for parents to reclaim the public education system to make sure that it is education that trumps indoctrination, not the other way around?
Well, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to take the schools back, the education back. But of course, it's the authorities that decide what gets taught, and so they're basically cutting out the people for their own agenda. And their agenda is, I'm sorry to say it, but it's grooming and indoctrination and brainwashing of our children into these harmful mental illnesses, and of course into the socialism as well, which is very much connected.
People that we're talking about on the other side of this police barricade, many of them are good-hearted people who think that they're trying to help. Why is there this push to trans all these kids? I think that Janice Raymond really said it best in 1972 in her book, The Transsexual Empire, in which she coins the term the medical industrial complex. They're making money off of indecisive. I hate to say this; it's such an uncomfortable topic, but they're making money off of indecisive, anxious, socially unhappy kids in a lot of stress.
When it comes to the medical community, they don't look at this as mutilation. They look at this as a profit center.
100%. There are some estimates that over the course of a lifetime, it's about $1 million per patient. Whatever it is, it's in the hundreds of thousands minimum when you include the surgeries and the hormones that are required for the rest of their life. These girls who go on testosterone, after 4 or 5 years, they have to get a hysterectomy because testosterone causes vaginal and uterine atrophy. Sometimes they're cutting out their ovaries as well. So now when they get to the ripe old age of 25 and they say, what the heck did you do to me? I'm sterilized, I can never have a family. Of course, it's harder to get into relationships. They've lost their hair, they've got a deep voice, they have deep regrets because they were really just struggling with self-loathing as a child. Well, now they can't even produce their own estrogen, even if they wanted to, so they're relying on buying some external source of that. This whole thing is a huge moneymaker for the pharmaceutical industry, doctors and surgeons. And there are true believers in this cult, but the entire thing needs to be ripped out by its roots, because there's no such thing as a gender identity, and there's no such thing as a child ever in the history of humankind who has ever been born wrong.
I'm fighting for the kids, I'm fighting for the family values, I'm fighting for us, but we are not alone. Other people are coming step by step, representative at the provincial level, municipal level, they're coming on our side. They know that all that must end, and I can tell you it will end.
One last question, Josh. We know the vast majority of people are on your side. We see that in the polling. What I'm getting at is when it comes to these leftist unions and school boards, what is the unspoken strategy? Why are they pushing the radical trans agenda? Why do they think it's a good thing to mutilate children before they're at the age of majority? What is going on behind the scenes in terms of why they're pursuing this?
Well, yeah, I'd say it's because we as a nation have turned our back on God. We've turned our back on basic morality. When you take the creator out of the picture, you lose the creator of morality, and that's what we're seeing. I think that this is much like what we've seen throughout history. Empires fall at the site of sexual perversion. It's happened so many times, and we're seeing it again here in North America. But that's why I'm so bold about my message. I want to get it out. We need to save Canada, and the only way to do that is through Christ.
Okay, I'm going to say this is the fight of your life for your children and your grandchildren. You need to come out and protest. The curriculum has been out of control for quite a while. This goes back a couple of decades. It's been a slow drip. Kathleen Wynne's legislation certainly added fuel to the fire when she was the Premier of Ontario. But this is the solution. You let your school boards know, you start running for school trustee, or if you really want to send a message to the Ministry of Education, which funds bums in the seats, I believe $22,000 a child is the formula funding. If 10% of parents in Ontario took their kids out of the public education system or even the separate school system, there would be panic at Queen's Park.
Oh, there sure would.
Principals would have to be fired. Schools would have to be shut down. Custodial staff would have to be fired. Teachers would have to be let go. Or the best alternative is homeschool your kids. It can be done.
Is that what we're seeing here?
Absolutely. Most of these people here today will call themselves Marxists or communists. They're frequently holding up signs with Lenin's picture. These are the far left who have always existed. And people say, what are you talking about Marxism? Marxism was based on financial oppression. So of course, Karl Marx, he put people into classes. There were the proletariat and the bourgeoisie. And there were the rich people and the poor people. And he wanted to equalize that. Well, what's this got to do with finances? Well, people are right. It's got nothing to do with finances in that respect. But the same mechanics of oppression, of oppressor versus oppressee, are totally at play. So this is like queer Marxism. It's an evolution of the original Marxism. And yeah, these people want to destroy society. They want to destroy everything that's normal. They want to take parents away from their kids. They treat parents as though they're automatically abusive to their own children. And the whole thing has got to go.
I would like to know where my brother is, please.
Me too.
I would like to know his medical condition. Where is my brother?
Open the report.
My brother is wounded, as you all saw. I want to know where he is.
This is a family member. I believe you can tell them, right?
If you can, please go to our website, stopclassroomgrooming.com. That's stopclassroomgrooming.com. Put your name to the petition. And also, if you can help us out financially, we have some security guards with us today. That's because the counter demonstrators, they're prone to violence. And essentially, we need their protection. So if you can help us recover our costs, we would gladly appreciate that. That is stopclassroomgrooming.com.